Hi, Facebook friends. Helen Arcantu here, CEO of the YWCA of Northern New Jersey. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and so happy to end the work week with you. We've had, we finally, if you're Northern New Jersey, we finally have some sun, some spring-like temperatures, all good stuff. For us, this is going to be a great way to end our week at YWTV, focused on really just helping us. We really try to engage all of our members and all of you viewers in how to get involved and how to use your voice, how to make sure that those that we put in office are really working for you and that they know what's important to you. And today's conversation is, helping to prop you up and give you some tools to be able to do that. All eyes have been on our state government right now. Recently, Governor Murphy kicked off our budget season with a public address highlighting our spending the spending priorities that he has for top programs and services for fiscal year 2023. The proposed budget represents priorities of his administration. And today we're going to take a look at those priorities and see how they fall in line with your priorities as a voter and your value system. And so grateful to have Nicole Rodriguez with us. She is with the New Jersey Policy Perspective. She's going to share some insights to help us better understand, one, the budget process in New Jersey. Other than, high school civics class, you may have not necessarily, you may see it in the paper, pop up on the news, but you may not, know all kind of how it all works. And also, what are some of the items that we really should be focused on, during this cycle? So we're going to get to talk about all of that. So welcome, Nicole. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, before we jump into this, I want to tell our viewers a little bit about you. You are the research director for New Jersey Policy Perspective. That's a think tank that drives policy and change to advance economic justice and prosperity for all New Jerseyans through evidence-based independent research, analysis, and advocacy. Nicole herself is an experienced public policy researcher who advocates for state and policy solutions that center communities' needs. Her research interests include labor and economic policy at the intersection of work and family. Could not be more aligned with our focus at the YW. Before joining NJPNP, Nicole was a senior researcher at Community Labor United, an organization that brings together community and labor partners to speak in one voice on issues that impact working class families throughout Greater Boston. And she was the senior policy analyst at the Massachusetts Budget and Policy Center. I see a little theme there about being up north and coming to New Jersey in your history. She holds a master's degree in public policy from Heller School for Social Policy and Management at Brandeis University, and a bachelor's degree in political science from Villanova University. Welcome, Nicole, again.
Thank you.
Hey, before we jump into this, I just want to ask you a question. The work that you're doing as a woman, there's not a lot of, are there a lot of women in the space of the work that you're doing?
There's actually, so New Jersey Policy Perspective is part of a national network, and our so-called parent organization is a major think tank in DC called the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. So we're part of this huge network, about, 40 plus state groups who are think tanks and do very similar work. Our sister organization, I actually came from our sister organization in Massachusetts, and there are a lot of women who are researchers and providing the strategic research for a lot of the legislation and policies that you see that come out today.
I'd love to know that. And I wanted to just lift that up because I think it's so important, when I think about the work that you're doing and how you're informing policy, for our state here and across your parent, entity across the country. It's so important to have women, so actively part of those spaces. So grateful, Absolutely. So grateful that you're there. So let's jump in for, what is the state budget? I mean, let's go back to, like, 101, from our younger school days. What is the state budget and why should we care about it?
I think you started us off so well, and also really in line how I like to talk about it. So the state budget is the single largest piece of legislation that is passed every year in every state. And it's not just numbers and line items, but it's something that affects every person in the state, whether you realize it or not. And the way I like to think about the state budget is it's really a way that we all come together as a state to pool our resources, mainly through taxes, to fund vital programs and services that benefit all of us. So, like public schools, our parks, our roads, our bridges, emergency response, higher education, transit, healthcare. There's so much more. Um, and ultimately, at its core, the budget is a moral document. Like you said, Helen, it represents values and vision for what New Jersey should be by revealing long-term and short-term priorities.
Well, again, this was so important to me to kind of start to share this conversation. We really have been spending so much time in our organization and the focus the last few years on really trying to activate our our members and our supporters to kind of get aligned with ways that they can take action on the issues that are at our core. And when I was watching the budget, the our governor sharing about the budget this year, I also simultaneously had the companion piece on of your organization kind of doing the budget analysis, which you were kind of doing a live feed, on your, I guess through YouTube, it had popped up, and then you put out a report and analysis shortly thereafter. And I was thinking, first of all, how grateful I was that we have you in our state, to be giving that like second lens and of eyes and keying us in to places that should, that maybe could get buried if you didn't know. That it's so important to have to have you with us. So just really want to shout out your organization. I know, and
Thank
for our
you.
viewers, if you are not signed up to get their weekly emails, which come out every Friday, that are really all like great because they're like numbers based. So they're quick and easy to look at, but they really are at the core of just important stuff that's happening in our state that, again, you may not be connected to on a daily basis, but it is impacting you on a daily basis for sure. And so I would encourage you to just, those are one of the emails that you are not going to want to unsubscribe from. It's going to be one of the emails that you want to subscribe from. And you also get to see all their great pets. So that's another like
Yes.
plus the organization is that we do all embrace our pets for sure. So tell us, you mentioned about why the budget's important. What is the like? What is budgets? And I know we launched budget season now. And
Yes.
obviously in our organization we have a budget season that we put together, our budget that we work on. So I have we have a sense of what that is. But for our viewers, what does it all mean? What is the timing? What is the time frame? What are the key dates? And what should we be clued into? What's happening right now around the budget?
So I just want to start off that budgets and policy can be so non-transparent, and I didn't fully understand until I was digging deep into this work. So no one should feel bad if they don't fully understand the process. It's not something actually you learn in civics class. You usually learn about like the federal bill process, not, and each state is different. So I'm just gonna say it out there. Don't feel bad if you don't know. Um, there's many experts who are experts in policy who still don't know the exact process. But for this budget for New Jersey, like I said, it's the largest money bill a state can pass, and it's the most far-reaching. And for some perspective, for this upcoming year, the governor's proposing about a $49 billion budget. And just to understand a key term, the state budget calendar, which we call a fiscal year, goes from July 1st to July 30th every year in New Jersey. So, like I said, every year we have to pass a new budget. And the basics of it is, like you said, we're right now, we're in budget season. And the season is officially kicked off with the governor when Governor Murphy presented his budget proposal to our state legislature, and this usually happens at the end of February. And the governor also kicks off the season by making a public speech about what he thinks are the top lines of his budget proposal. So what you saw on our tweets when we live update or live tweeted the governor's speech was our reactions to his top lines. So I like to think of this as a relay race. So first you have the governor. The governor then passes the baton to the legislature. And then here, the Senate and the Assembly's budget committees are responsible for two major sets of hearings, one for the public and one for departments. So for the public hearings, and these are held in March and April every year, and this is an opportunity for anyone, and I mean anyone, to come in and have their voice heard. This is where we see a lot of advocacy groups giving testimonies on things that they really care about and how they can be improved, or these things can be improved for their communities. And again, anyone can testify and sign up. And we encourage that. It's important for the legislature to hear your voice. So then after that happens, after the public hearings, you have the budget committee holds department hearings. And this is where the department heads, like think of commissioners, secretaries, like the commissioner of the Department of Education, for example. They present an overview of their budget for their department. And they talk about their priorities and their projects. And what's interesting about this is that they also have to answer questions from the budget committee. And this is another way to get involved. You can write or call your legislator and ask them to ask questions on your behalf. So, for example, you could ask a legislator to ask the acting commissioner for the Department of Education, who is Angelica Allen Nicole, about expanding pre-K, public pre-K in your community. How would it work? How much would it cost? What would be the timeline? That kind of thing. And these hearings are open to the public, all of them, the public and the department ones, and they're streamed online. And then after these hearings, and hopefully and ideally, what it's supposed to be informed by these hearings, then the legislature figures out its next steps to the budget. And there's only three options. One, they can negotiate the budget with the governor's office. They can accept the budget as proposed by the governor, like making no changes, or they can write their own budget, like they did this past year. But whatever they choose, the final budget has to be passed through both chambers, so both through the Assembly and through the Senate. And then it gets passed back to whatever they choose, it gets passed back to the governor. And before it gets signed, the governor has three options. He can veto the entire budget that the legislature proposes. This is usually really unlikely. The governor can accept the budget as is and make no changes, which can happen. But what usually happens is that the governor accepts the budget with line item vetoes. And what that means is that the governor can reduce funding for a specific program. But while he can veto, the governor cannot add anything back into the budget that was not proposed by the legislature. He had his chance in the beginning. And then they have to agree, finish that process before the end of the fiscal year, which is at the end of June. And then we have a new budget for the new fiscal year to work on. And we also have a really great Budget 101 explainer on njpp.org. And we often do Budget 101 trainings to organizations around the state. So if anyone who's listening and is interested in having us come in and explain the budget process, that's our jam. We're more than excited to be able to do those kind of things.
And I love that you offer that. And for our viewers, and you'll hear me say it again, please go check out New Jersey Policy Perspective. We've got their website up on the screen. You can follow them on social media. You can sign up for their email alerts. There's so much important information. They offer tremendous webinars, throughout the year that are, clued into really important issues, just to give, and they give you such a great framework of to be thinking about them. Even if it's something you know nothing about, you will leave any of these events really kind of getting a sense, and which is really where our power comes from. All of us, we really try to activate our community and remind them that, it's not just about, we really try to get everyone voting. We work hard on, getting voter registration out there, voter engagement out there, but it doesn't end there. It's a process that we should be engaging in throughout the year, every year, and in different ways. And part of it is really getting to understand the process and the issues and where the budget falls into some of the other pieces. So this is so helpful, Nicole. Thank you. And again, for our viewers, there's a lot of other opportunities if you want to bring this information into your organizations that you're connected to, or learn more about it for yourself. And especially, we want to make sure that all of our youth is growing up knowing and understanding this as well. So great opportunities. So, our YWCA of Northern New Jersey, we're so focused on our work as, empowering women and eliminating racism. There's so many important issues that are connected, to, the focus of the work that we do, that are linked in the budget. For our viewers who clearly align with that mission as being important to them, what are some areas in the budget that they should really pay some attention to and be thinking about, popping in? And I love that everything is so virtual now. I mean, that is one of the positives, that we really, everyone doesn't have to trek down to Trenton to hear and
Yeah.
see what's going on. They can pop in through these, Zooms and these, virtual opportunities, in addition to staying connected to your organization, to getting updates.
Yes. So there's so many great storylines that we're seeing out of this budget. Um, Great and also interesting ones. For instance, and I think this is really important. Governor Murphy's budget is proposing about 992 million for existing and new pre-K programs. And this is an increase over last year's funding. And 40 million of it would support about 3,000 new seats in about 40 school districts. And increasing access to pre-K is important not only for parents, who suffer the high cost of childcare, but also for the kids themselves. Pre-K is important because it gives young kids significant advantages in language and literacy and math skills. So we're really happy and excited to see about that. Um, there's also an interesting, and I think is one of the things that have been most talked about in this budget, is the governor is proposing a new property tax credit called Anchor, which stands for Affordable New Jersey Communities for homeowners and renters. So it's a mouthful, hence Anchor. And this program would expand the homestead benefit. And for those who don't know what that is, the homestead benefit is a property tax credit, for homeowners earning up to $75,000 per year. And also, for seniors and those who meet the state definition of disabled, who earn up to $150,000 per year. And what this anchor program would do, it would increase the credit for all current recipients. It would extend the benefit to homeowners with higher incomes. And for renters, the benefits are fixed at about $150 for most renters earning below $100,000, and $250 for seniors and renters with disabilities, who earn less than $70,000. But this is where the devil is in the details. Um, all households eligible with let me take a step back. So what is good? All households in all the eligible income ranges would receive an increase in this proposed program. But the increases are largest for higher income homeowners who are not previously eligible for the credit. And that point is really important. We know that Black and and Latinx New Jersey residents make up a smaller portion of homeowners, and the gap between wealth in homeowners and renters also really drives racial wealth inequality. So those are things we really have to give in mind, and we would like to see the credit actually for renters be increased, especially since a large part of our state, almost every single county, the majority of people who rent and own are experiencing housing cost burden.
Yes. So can I ask a question right there
Mhm,
before we keep going? So for, those of us that, I mean, that's such an important point to really show how the state budget can either improve or perpetuate,
mhm.
inequities, here in our state. Um, how can people weigh in on that particular issue, for example, if that's something that they, want to make sure, gets looked at and addressed differently?
Yes. So there's so many ways. So right now we're in the budget season. We're at the tail end of the public hearings. There's one more opportunity to sign up for a public hearing, or even to email your legislature, the legislature or your particular legislator, and ask them to make this proposed program more equitable, at least more progressive. Um, so you could do that live. You can call your legislator. You can write to them. You can testify. You can schedule meetings if you don't want to do this by yourself. There's so many coalitions around the state who are working on these issues. There's a housing network that in Trenton that focuses all on housing issues, and they would be happy to have you come in and support their work, and also jump in and help lobby. And you don't need experience lobbying. It's just talking about the issues and how your communities would be affected, especially in the long term with things like when you're addressing the wealth gap.
Well, thank you for sharing that because I know that there's so many places within the budget and it's so great that you said the devil's in the details, but the reality of it is sometimes on the surface things look like one thing, right? But when you look further into them, which is why it's so important to have organizations like yours to be able to do that. Look with that keen eye, at those pieces, just to make sure that we all know what's in there and what our representatives are voting for. And again, whether or not that reflects what's important to us, whether
Yeah,
for organizations we're connected to or individually, our value systems and however that, plays out. So
yeah.
I love that you gave us some really good concrete ways to participate there. So, you talked about Anchor, we talked about childcare and pre-K. Anything else that we should be really focused on from a mindset here?
Yes. Oh, and let me just be specific on the housing network. That's our shorthand, is the Housing and Community Development Network of New Jersey. They're amazing. Um, okay, I just wanted to plug them because
Well,
I love
just
them
for
so
that,
much.
we're gonna make note, and we'll have them on YWTV soon too, so we can
You
elevate
should. Yeah, they're great.
their.
Um, there's oh, other things because I think they're really important, especially in addressing one of them addressing the racial wealth gap. So the governor is proposing to make a full pension payment, which would bolster retirement security for more than 800,000 public workers and retirees. And this is so important. Why? Mostly because over the past 2 decades, we have either skipped or did not make complete pension payments. And pensions are so important when you're looking at the racial wealth gap because public sector workers are more likely to have access to pensions. And they're also more likely, the sector is more likely to have a higher concentration of people of color. And pensions really do lift up long term wealth and reduce racial wealth gaps. So we're really, really excited about that. And also, an interesting funding that the governor's proposing for immigrants that I think it's really important to lift up. The budget is proposing about 53 million of federal funds for direct relief for individual low paid ITIN holders. And this is an alternative to the now expired Excluded New Jerseyans Fund, which expired at the end of February. And this program gave many frontline workers, many of whom aren't documented, access to federal relief caused by the pandemic. And another thing to note, though, while this is great, funding is well below what the average person did get in federal relief. So if we want to think about equality and affordability in the state, we should look at, how equal or where's the equity in terms of funding folks who've really been damaged by this pandemic.
Well, folks who are watching, just I want to make sure that you're taking note. We've been putting up on the screen for you the links. Now we have the Housing and Community Development Network of New Jersey, so you can check them out as well. And again, I will invite them to be on the show at some point so we can talk about their work as well, since
Great.
it's clearly so aligned with our values at the YWCA of Northern New Jersey. You've given us so much information about the process that, I know that, again, even if we had some sense of it, I mean, it's so much clarity now through this conversation. And we really have some concrete ways that we can get involved for sure throughout the year in different pieces and ways. And again, I do encourage everyone to check out the budget analysis that NJPNP has done and the updates that they are providing as we go through this process. They're kind of like riding sidecar and making sure that we know what's happening and giving us those details that may not be too obvious to us if we're not as entrenched in them. So it's such a value. What else would you want to make sure you say to our viewers about this process and their involvement? That before we leave them, to make sure that they really are thinking about these things, and kind of, if they're trying to get into this space of being more active and being more informed, that they should know about.
Yeah. I think it's good to understand that when trying to be involved in budget debates, they're essentially about what share of our resources should we spend things on. We all have budgets. We have budgets in our home. The government has a budget too, and we have every right to have our voice listened to and to discuss what we need to prioritize for our communities. And when government is underfunded, investing in our state, it hurts in a long-term investment in our state, because we cannot do the things that we really care about. So if we reduce funding for higher education, which we have over the years, what does that result in? Well, if you look at tuition and fees for most public higher ed institutions, when we underfund or reduce funding for universities and colleges, your tuition and fees actually go up. So it's really important that we understand the consequences of where we're putting money into, where we're taking it out. Um, and I think for this year, it's good to know that we actually have a budget surplus. So we had better than expected tax revenue. We had an influx of federal dollars. And with this money, we really do believe that the state needs to focus more funding on families who've been left behind. This is low income families, Black and Brown families who are historically left behind in the policy decision making process. And we really just don't want any more giveaways for already wealthy people and corporations because they're doing fine. So, again, I just want to lift up the opportunities for action. You can testify at public budget hearings. You can contact your legislator with emails, calls, even postcards, set up meetings with your legislators, organize rallies at legislative offices, or join a coalition who are doing those things, organize community outreach, um, share your stories with the media. And you can also write letters to the other editor, op-eds. These get seen, and do amplify your message on social media and tag those lawmakers because they do read them. Um, so yes, so our basic pillars around this work is advancing equity through tax and budget policy, but also raising adequate revenue for new investments. So we do understand there's two sides of the scale. So if we increase spending, we need more dollars to come in, and we have to be very thoughtful about that balance but also making sure it's not burdening people who are in need the most.
Well, and I also want to note that in the comments, our friends at New Jersey Policy Perspective put a link here so that you can go and see that publication that we've been referring to throughout this broadcast. So please check it out.
Cool.
Download it, keep it, read it, share it. As I always
We have
say,
a great comms team.
you do have a great team. And like I said, I'm always so impressed and always keep myself informed with what you put out there. And, I think one of the things, again, too, it doesn't matter what level of information you have in your head about this. Everything that they put out is in a format in a way that anyone can really absorb it and process it. And clearly they have a great team to be able to explain it if you have a question that you can reach
Absolutely.
out to. So for our viewers, you're part of, as I always say, the YWTV's power. Take something that you learned today, integrate it into a conversation that you're having, share this broadcast, tell someone in your life about something you learned, share the link to New Jersey Policy Perspective, make sure you're following them personally on their social media channels so that you can stay engaged. This is just one piece of so much work that they do. As soon as the budget season is done, and while the budget season is happening, they're involved in other things, but as soon as it's done, they're moving on to the next place of focus, and it's important for all of us to move there with them. So please stay connected. And Nicole, thank you so much for sharing so much information. Look forward to having you and others from your team back to talk about other important issues that are impacting our state, and we should be definitely engaged in. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. And of course, we're always happy to be helpful or informative. We really appreciate this opportunity to chat with you.
And for our viewers, it's Friday. We hope everyone has a great weekend and safe weekend. However you're sharing it, spending it. We look forward to spending time with you again next week with some more great YWTV episodes. Also want to lift up so that you remember to go to our social media and to go to our website. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. We have a lot of great programs that are additional programs from what we do year round for survivors right now to help, give them some additional support. Everything from support groups, coffee houses, and also for general public, just to educate you on how you can be a better ally, and also how you can have the information in case someone in your life needs it, because unfortunately, statistically, we know that that is quite possible. So we want to make sure that you spend some time looking at those events. And also, April is nationally when the YWCA focuses our Stand Against Racism. This year's theme is We Can't Wait, Equity and Justice Now. We have a number of events happening right now, including we're still accepting through our Voices youth call and action through the arts campaign for submissions. So any youth can submit. We have the information here how you can do that. And April 25th is our Racial Justice Awards happening in Maplewood. And there's some amazing honorees this year. We've been unveiling them week to week. And so far, a few of them are out. And we do encourage you to go check out our website and check out our social media pages to learn about them. And we hope you join us to celebrate the amazing work that they're doing. They are models in our community, and definitely we should all be following their work and thinking about ways that we too can, in action, in ways that make sense for us, be working to eliminate racism, in our community and across our state and country as well. And I can't end without saying big shout out for yesterday, big news with the confirmation of our, soon to be, sitting first Black Supreme Court Justice, female, and could not be more proud, could not be more excited about history being made and having our first female vice president making the announcement as well. I mean, what a historic moment to get to view that for our entire country, and especially for the space that it makes for Black women and Black girls in our community in their minds now about what's attainable for them. But every one of us as Americans should be so proud of this moment, and so happy to stand and continue to watch what comes next. So everyone have a great weekend. Thank you so much, Nicole, for being with us. And, we'll see you all next week. Be well. Bye-bye.